Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:07 on O'Connor and Company this Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us in your nation's capital. It's a big one, and we appreciate you starting your day the right way right here on WMAL. Coming up at 7:05, Mary Catherine Ham will be our guest. At 7:35, Katie Gorka, chair of the Republican Party in Fairfax, because today's that special election for Virginia 11. Come on out there and vote for Stuart Whitson and shock the world. 8:05, Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia. He's got a bill that he's putting forward called the Clean D.C. Act. Common sense law enforcement and accountability now in the District of Columbia. Sounds just right. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And look who's here, fresh from the campaign trail, probably still on the campaign trail. It is 6 o'clock in the morning after all. He could be out there greeting voters at metro stops and knocking on their doors, waking them up, frying them eggs in the kitchen, whatever it needs to be done to get those votes. It's John Reid, Republican nominee for Lieutenant Governor. Thanks for joining us, John.
Hey, good morning. I will be out there campaigning all day today, so I'm really excited about Stuart. What a great candidate this guy is, and I hope you guys have met him. He's super nice, really engaged. I enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah, we've had Mr. Whitson on several times. Great guy, great family, very smart. But, here's my question for you, John, as it pertains to this special election, but also as it pertains to your election, as well as the election of Attorney General Miyares and Lieutenant Governor Sears. We're told that Northern Virginia, places like Fairfax County, Virginia 11, it's just too Democrat. There's no way you can win. It's blue, blue, blue. Well, what are you seeing out there?
No, look, everybody sees the numbers. We know that people are inclined to look at the Democrats and likely vote for them. But the Democrats keep doubling and tripling down on very unpopular policies. And I just think there's a time where people look up and go, wait a minute, who's actually looking out for me? The crime issue. It's clear that Republicans are trying to actually solve the crime issue instead of commiserate with the actual criminals, the people who are perpetrating the crime. I've been up here to a couple of different school board meetings where these school systems are doubling and tripling down on the trans issue, putting boys in girls' locker rooms. I mean, parents who would never consider voting Republican are saying, excuse me, I thought we told you 4 years ago that's not what we want. And the Democrats just refuse to adjust. So I think when you look across the spectrum, there are a lot of people who are going to go, I'm not a huge fan of the Republicans, but they're better than the Democrats are these days.
It seems like the Democrat strategy here is to just avoid the subject. Abigail Spanberger was on a show recently and talked more about banana bread and her particular style of making banana bread than the scandals that are happening all over Virginia. Do you think? I think Democrats have a very high pain threshold. Terrible things happen in their communities, and they continue to put Democrats in office. But do you think that the sort of persuadable Democrats, persuadable independents have had enough?
Oh, yeah, and we're beginning to see that. I got polling yesterday that indicates that I'm actually in the lead. I don't want to jinx it, and that's just a snapshot. But there are people who have said, stick your banana bread. We're not interested in that. And, most mainstream reporters are not really pushing the issue with the Democrats. That's why those of us who are campaigning have to get out there and be hyper aggressive and demand debates. I mean, Ghazala Hashmi, who is the Democrat nominee for Lieutenant Governor, I started out 2.5 months ago saying, hey, let's do 10 debates all across the state. She refuses. She even turned down on Friday, get this, I agreed to do a debate on NPR at American University, in D.C., talk about, rigging it in her favor, and she refuses to do it. So, I just don't think voters are going to go for that.
Yeah, and your opponent, Ms. Hashmi, has also got a clear legislative record here when it comes to parental rights. I love that Spanberger, when she dares to put out a pre-produced ad about the issues facing Northern Virginia schools and the transgender policies and the apparently facilitated and paid for abortions at Fairfax High School. She just always falls back to, I want parents to have a choice. I want parents to have a voice. But, of course, that's meaningless. It makes no sense which parents get to win the day with regard to transgender policies. But Hashmi's even worse. She's got a clear legislative record. There was a bill in front of her in Richmond that said parents should be notified if their child is identifying and dressing and presenting as the opposite sex in classroom. She voted no on that. She does not want parents to know. She does not want parents to have an understanding of what their 12-year-old child is doing when they go to school. That's radical.
It is radical. And everything that the normal mom and dad are questioning or despise about the current public school system, Ghazala Hashmi is responsible for that. I mean, she's the chair of the education committee, but she's not pushing back on any of it. She's not reining in the more extreme elements of her party. She is leading the extreme elements of her party. And I think once Virginians find out about that, it's game over for her. People who have never voted Republican before are going to be voting Republican this year.
Our guest is John Reid. He's running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. It is frustrating from our perspective that there hasn't been a robust schedule of debates, and it's also frustrating that the media doesn't seem to really want to challenge any of the Democrat candidates on any of their positions. I know that you're trying to get out there as much as possible. Are you seeing anything in the last 2 months of this election that might change that so that we can actually get some engagement and that the people of Virginia are served with information about the candidates that are before them?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to force the issue with every media interview I do. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm going into rooms that are not traditional Republican rooms, and I'm making my case. You know, I understand the anxiety of going into a room of people who you think, oh, these are not traditional Republican voters. Last week, I went down to Yorktown to the NAACP meeting and agreed to be on a panel. Now, I was disinvited at the last minute where they said, oh, you're a statewide candidate. You're not allowed to be on the panel. And I said, what do you mean? I accepted this 2 months ago, and I was the only Republican statewide candidate who showed up. And the lady who was so nice, who was organizing, I think she was a little embarrassed that her bosses told her I couldn't speak, so they gave me 60 seconds. And I just said, look, I know you guys, some of you would never vote Republican, but here's why I'm running. I want to find areas of commonality with you. And I think those kinds of efforts are going to make a difference, going out and talking to people who, I don't want to be dramatic, but have never met a Republican, or at least never met a Republican they liked. That's the kind of work we got to do, and I think it will work in the end.
I think that you and many of the other candidates have done a very good job of explaining just how radical these candidates are. I mean, from Elizabeth Guzman, who's running in Prince William County for the General Assembly, to criminalize parents who object to the gender transition of their children, to, you know, people forget in 2020 that Virginia Democrats, they passed a law allowing schools to refrain from reporting instances of sexual battery and stalking and violations of protective orders to the police. I mean, children really are in danger, and I think that's the message that parents really need to understand. It really continues to be parenting issues that are so important in Virginia. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, Democrats are trying to keep information away from parents. They are trying to take over the lives of your children. Even when Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, and Jason Miyares beat them on that issue 4 years ago, they still haven't learned the lesson. And it's part of a larger pattern in the Democrat mindset, which is crazy to me, that they're always going to side, for some reason, with the criminal. Whether it's a 16-year-old or whether it's a 60-year-old, they're going to make excuses. They're going to put the law-abiding working families in danger. And I think people have had enough of it.
Hey, John Reid, hold on a second. I got a couple more questions. Hopefully you can stay with us.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
John Reid is the Lieutenant Governor nominee in Virginia. And today, by the way, is the election day for the Virginia 11 special election. Polls are open now. They just opened 15 minutes ago at 6 a.m. Get out there, vote for Stuart Whitson. John Reid is also a former talk radio host, and despite that obvious indication of moral failing and intellectual subversiveness, we still support his candidacy for lieutenant governor. And John, as a former radio guy, as a person who would interview candidates, like I am interviewing you, you are running for lieutenant governor, and we have spent a good 10 minutes now talking about the issues, talking about what matters to the voters, talking about how the race is being covered, things like that, things that are important to the voters. I'd love for your put your radio hat on. Give us your judgment on this interview that Abigail Spanberger just engaged in. Take a listen.
I'm very excited. I got your recipe for the banana bread. I'm just waiting for my bananas to ripen.
I always just wait for bananas to ripen, and then it's not like time for me to make banana bread. So then you peel them, freeze them, and then they actually get sweeter even once they freeze and then unfreeze. Yeah, I've got 8 frozen bananas in my freezer right now.
John Reid, where do you stand on freezing your bananas when making banana bread?
I mean, softball. It's unbelievable that the candidate for governor gets away with that. Do you think anybody has sat down and had a really softball conversation with Winsome about, well, tell me about the first 6 years of your life in Jamaica, and you know, let's talk about your arrival in the United States. All these amazing stories that I think Winsome could tell you about her life coming to the United States and, you know, being a woman in the Marine Corps. I've kind of been shocked. Nobody really seems interested in that. All they want to do is beat up on her and try to make her look bad while they do these softballs for Abigail.
Does she make banana bread?
It's not shocking, but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Julie, do you freeze your bananas when you make banana bread?
I have frozen my bananas, and actually, weirdly, did make banana bread this weekend. But I am not running for governor.
You're a white suburban woman. She is targeting you. This is all about your vote.
Much like Abigail, I also have a closet filled with Talbot clothes. But
do you see this? I mean, it is crazy. This is what they do. They do lifestyle and softball issues to try to make the Democrat candidates feel very appealing to the average, you know, I don't like to say low information, but the average voter who's not paying close attention to issues. And it's like, oh, well, I like them. And most people can pull off a 10-minute interview and not be unlikable, right? But they never do that with Republican candidates. I mean,
it is absolutely, John, you're so right. It is absolutely an effort to humanize someone who literally thinks parents belong in jail if they don't want to medicalize their children. So you're right. It's like they give them these opportunities to look normal when their policies are anything but.
And meanwhile, Republican candidates have to think 2 and 3 times before they open their mouth, because anything that sounds even remotely sketchy is going to be used to browbeat you. And, you know, I've got a pretty interesting story. Do you think the New York Times has called to talk to me to say, wow, you're making history in Virginia? What's that like? What's it been like? No one cares. All they want to do is ignore me to try to make sure I don't raise money and to try to suppress the vote. Well, I refuse to allow that to happen because I'm going to get out talking. I can promise you that.
Well, and the bottom line here is, I mean, we're sort of lamenting how this race is being covered. We're certainly not covering it like that over here. And as usual, we would love to have, oh, God, are you kidding me? Give me as much hash me as I can. I'll give her a full hour. I have plenty of questions.
Shall we do a debate? You want to do that? We'll call her today and tell her that you've offered it.
We're lamenting that, but the bottom line here is these races are neck and neck. You've just revealed that you've got polling that shows that you're in the lead now. Are these internal polls or are these public polls?
They're internal. I mean, we're gonna dump the numbers today, I think. I mean, I was shocked yesterday because I've been holding on like, oh my God, I'm getting crushed with fundraising because the Democrats are just pumping money into their candidates, trying to
mostly from outside of Virginia.
Right.
You got it. And you know, I don't want to beat up on my friends up here in D.C., but I'm like, hey, RNC, all the bigwig Republicans who's sitting on big money, you have 2 choices of headlines on November 5th. Conservatives win, Republicanism surges, Trump is doing so well, or the opposite. And you know what? I think we're doing a pretty good job of identifying problems, coming up with solutions, executing on those solutions, even when it's tough, I think we're doing a good job. And we should be funding these campaigns. And, like mine, my opponent's got almost $3 million. I got $300,000 in the bank. Are you kidding?
So you just ripped my last question from me. We just had Casey Crosby, the newly elected co-chair of the RNC, on. She said that they were going to be engaged in this campaign. They were going to work on get out the vote. They were going to work on ground game. What do you need? What does the Whitson, Reid, Miyares ticket need from the RNC right now that you're not getting?
Well, Winsom's got some cash.
Oh, come on, John. Don't hedge. I know you
I
better
need
than
cash
this.
What was that WMAL ads, to buy TV ads, because as hard as I work, and I have not taken a day off since January 27th, no kidding, and I'm usually up at 5 o'clock in the morning driving around the state, I can't shake 8.5 million hands. I can't go to every Kiwanis club and every ladies club in Virginia. So you just got to buy media, and it's expensive.
And Spanberger and the whole team, they're everywhere. They're all over local television. They have huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
All right.
And
well,
so
listen,
for folks who aren't paying attention, that's big to get
we'll
out.
Have
front
RNC on again, and we will let them know that. And say we've asked the candidates; they need more air cover. What are you going to do? Let's start running some ads, and we'll see what happens. Thanks, John.
You're awesome. I really appreciate you all having me on. It's johnreedforvirginia.com if you want to check out the website.
And John Reid is campaigning today for Stuart Whitson, as it's a special election day today only. If you haven't already voted, get out there and vote for Virginia 11. It's 6:24.
Coming up, we'll talk about a concerning new report. The nation's report card shows drops in science, math, and reading scores. We've got the details. Keep it here at 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Busy Tuesday morning. 9th day of September. Coming up at 7:05, Mary Catherine Ham. At 7:35, Katie Gorka, chair of the Republican Party in Fairfax. And then at 8:05, Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia has a new bill called the Clean D.C. Act. Already has Senator Ted Cruz co-sponsoring over on the Senate side. Clean D.C. We'll get into that. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Get into it, Julie. Let's get into it.
Good morning.
Good morning. Like most parents, you sent your little munchkins off for school again for this school year, the 25-26 school year. Although your munchkins aren't very munchkin-y anymore. They're gigantic, big boys.
They are.
And as school begins again, we are graced with what's called the Nation's Report Card. Now, this is a assessment by the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, to those in the know. It's the Nation's Report Card, and it's meant to take the assessments of 8th graders in science, 12th graders in math and reading. These are the national assessments that were instituted a couple of decades ago, right?
Yeah.
The news is not great. 8th grade science scores fell 4 points since 2019. 12th graders' math and reading scores have fallen 3 points in the same time period. Scores continue to go down. Students are performing lower and lower on the assessment. This, of course, after the nation's school teachers unions, of course, continue to demand more money to fund the status quo and keep doing what they've been doing. This, of course, by the way, is not surprising considering the failures of the pandemic school shutdowns and all of the drops in specific education and hands-on instruction that children obviously need at all levels. But the best part of this report, and by the way, the reporting comes from NPR, line 2 of their article, the tests were administered between January and March 2024. All right, so that's the second line of the article. Tests were administered between January and March of 2024. Now, I think anybody with a functioning brain knows that was before President Trump took office in January of 2025. In fact, it's a full year before President Trump took office.
Yeah.
Now listen to the next line, the very next line in the NPR article. Again, I just want to remind you, I'll just read the article to you. These two lines back to back. The tests were administered between January and March 2024. This is the first NAEP score released since the Trump administration began making cuts to the U.S. Education Department.
Of course.
All throughout the article, they keep going back to this, and Trump has now cut this, and Trump has cut that, and these scores are down, and the scores are down, and Trump has cut it. All of these scores were taken before Trump became president, let alone started making. By the way, he didn't make any cuts in the National Education Department. He reassigned the funds in the Education Department to be administered via the states rather than doled out through the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I can just see Randy Weingarten later today huffing and puffing and jumping up and down as she does, saying that this is the result of cuts. Look, it is not. This was the last of the Biden administration. The results are horrifying, and they've been horrifying year after year after year. Only 35% of high school seniors can read proficiently in 2024. I mean, 35% of high school seniors can read proficiently. Think about that. 32% of high school seniors were below basic readers, in other words, functionally illiterate, okay? Interestingly, for the fourth year in a row, Florida has ranked number one, on the scale, one of the states that is doing so well. So that, you got to ask yourself, which states are doing well, which states are doing bad. Obviously, nationally, we're doing horrible, embarrassingly so. And yet again, like you just mentioned, Larry, they're going to use this as a reason to beat up on Trump when these numbers do not measure Trump. And let's just be clear, when the next one comes out, it might look grim again because it takes years to turn this stuff around. And what Trump is doing is the right move, but it might not look great, but they'll pounce again and say it's all because of cuts.
Democrats and the progressive left and the establishment, let's say the permanent political class, whatever you want to call it, have basically had their way with education for decades.
Yes.
Nobody has challenged the status quo. Nobody has said, let's reassess how we're spending the money. Teachers unions have been able to write blank checks, and that's from the federal level all the way down to your local school board. That's just the reality of the situation. And yet, this is not just a result of the last several years and the pandemic and the headaches that were involved with that. This is a trend that we've seen for decades, where as the progressives get to reimagine how education is supposed to be administered in this nation, the scores continue to fall and fall and fall and fall. Standards are lowered, and there's mayhem in the classroom, and no discipline is ever enforced, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anyone, like a legitimate, serious person in this country now who believes that the problem with our education system is lack of funding? Seriously? They've gotten everything they've ever wanted.
They may not believe it. I don't think anyone believes it, but that certainly is the absolute talking point, the number one talking points of the Democrat Party. I mean, they will not face this issue seriously. They don't care. And
when we know parochial schools have better records and they spend less money on students. We know that homeschool children have better education records, and God knows parents don't make the kind of money. I mean, they spend like $30,000 per
Larry,
kid.
you know every problem. The Democrats say throw money at it. That's it. That's the only solution they're willing to discuss. And this is and actually they're gleeful when reports like this come out. It gives them the fuel to say, well, then obviously we need to spend more money. Obviously. I mean, you've seen this with this murder of this Ukrainian refugee. That Democrats, if they talk about solutions to this, it's always, well, we need more money for mental health services, right? You see this in every issue that comes up. Well, we need more money for wind farms, obviously. Like it doesn't matter what the issue is. The solution is always, well, we need more money, obviously. So this is they actually are pleased when reports like this come out. They're not looking for real solutions. They're looking for reasons to complain about the funding levels.
as you hear this story reported today, with high school and secondary school numbers down once again for our public education children, just know, despite the way it's framed and despite all of the warning signs and the hysteria that they're going to throw at you having to do with the so-called cuts that the Trump administration has put forth when there aren't any cuts, just recognize that these scores were all taken during the first 3 months of Biden's last year. Just keep that in mind as you hear the reports from your mainstream legacy media outlets.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Here, all this time, I thought the Jews controlled Hollywood, Julie, but apparently not so much.
Really? Surprised.
Yeah, Emma Stone and 1,200 other Hollywood bigwigs have signed a pledge vowing to refuse work with Israeli institutions and companies implicated in, quote, genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people. There is no genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people. It's a disgusting blood libel. Doug Murray, who is a stalwart defender of the state of Israel, was on Fox yesterday talking about it. Cuddy.
You know what this is a sign of is the weird religion of Palestinianism in our time. This weird way in which people who know nothing about global politics, know nothing about wars and so on, decide to make this fetish of the Palestinian people and to deride and to slander the people of the one Jewish state in the world.
Yeah, can't say it much better than that. It's disgusting.
It is heartbreaking, honestly, that they're trying to attack the Israeli film industry, and this will hurt the Israeli film industry. Yet again, we have this sort of, Douglas Murray said, it's bizarre. It's bizarre that they turn their wrath towards Israel and not towards Hamas, who continues to hold hostages in Gaza.
To this day.
It is galling, and galling doesn't even capture it. It is just enraging what these Hollywood stars, and they're so stupid. You know, Hollywood stars need to stick to scripts. There is a reason they read scripts, because they don't know anything. They're not bright. They're beautiful to look at, and that's it. But this is shameful behavior, and every single one of these, I guess the number is 1,800 film industry figures. This should be a list of monsters, really, who should never work again. Of course they will, but they should never work again.
It may be beautiful to look at, but it's getting uglier and uglier and uglier to gaze upon them. It's 6:53.